Hello. We are live again. How's everybody doing? I think there's only one on so far. Let's let people get in here. Welcome to this Wednesday afternoon. Hour later than we're normally used to starting, but we're flexible. We got this. Okay, let me just let people kind of file in. Having a good week so far, hopefully everyone. I've kind of started to realize I'm like living the same week over again, but it's like each week is presenting different challenges, but then I'm also like, this is exactly how I felt last week at this exact same time. I probably said this last week also, so maybe that's why it's feeling a little bit familiar. Okay, welcome again to this week's episode of Rešet the Table Live, presented by Reinc and yours truly. These just keep getting better, to be honest. I'm loving doing every single one of them. We get to talk to the most interesting people, people who are literally changing the world around us as we live in it. So many creatives and people, as we like to say, breaking the status quo with their every move and just by existing. So I'm just absolutely loving this and so thankful for everybody who's joining every week to check out these conversations. We have an incredible conversation for you this time. I'm personally geeked about this. I think that this person is just incredibly influential. One of the most influential people I think in our lifetime, and certainly of my lifetime. Patrisse Cullors, she's one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, but she's a million other things as well. She's an artist, an activist, an educator, an organizer. She's so many things in this world. So I'm so excited to be able to have this conversation with her. I realized in our other lives, I would bring the person on and then basically just talk over them for 5 minutes. So I thought I'd do some introductions and get things going before we brought the guest on, because everyone wants to hear from the guest, of course. So she will be on in just a few minutes. Reset the table. What is it? Why do we do it? Why have we brought it to the gram? Why have we continued to do it? The first two we did were live. They were incredible. Just a meeting of the minds and people from, different backgrounds and industries, to spark that sort of conversation, to spark innovation. We have this deep desire at Reinc to amplify people's voices in the world and ideas and pioneers in the world who are already reimagining the status quo and who are already doing things in their lives to reimagine what this world could be. So we figured in these COVID times, we've got to find a way to continue to do this. And IG Live is proving to be the best way to do just about anything. Obviously, Reset the Table, coming with cards. Each week we pick one of these cards, and this prompts and provokes our conversation. These will be coming to you very quickly. We are so excited to share these conversation starters. Bust it open. You have all these cards. You can do it at a dinner party. There's a bunch of them in here. This will keep you talking for literally days and weeks and years. So these are coming very soon, and they have been the prompts and the conversation starters for all of the conversations that we've had. So stay tuned on these ones. And as always, I've got to get the guest in. And, that's always a challenge for me, but I'm here for it. So let me see where our girl is. Okay, view. Boop, okay, I see her. Let's bring in this. Hey, she's in. This is pretty seamless for me. Normally I fumble through like about 10 minutes of trying to.
I saw your nervousness. You're like, okay, let me see if I can do this.
I know. There's sweat under this sweater, but like nobody needs to see it and nobody can see it. So we're good.
I'm obsessed with that sweater, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I got it during COVID, and it's like I haven't found that many times to wear it. So it's like every chance I can get to bust it out, I do. Patrisse Cullors, everybody, welcome to Rešet the Table Live. How are you doing? How are you?
Oh, every day is a
big
new
question.
day.
Big question.
Every day is a new day. I think, being on with you is incredible. Obviously, when I got the note, like, hey, Megan Rapinoe wants to hang out with you, I was like, what? Okay, amazing. So
likewise.
super grateful for this opportunity. But, I think my family's safe. I feel safe. We're all sort of doing, shelter in place. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful that we're all doing well.
Good. Yeah, same. I know. I feel like I haven't found a way to ask how people are doing that seems appropriate for the moment. Every time it's like if you launch fully into it, you're like, little too much. This is just an email and I'm just asking how you're doing. If you don't say enough, you're just like, hey, how you doing? It's like, that's not appropriate. So yeah. I'm safe. My family's safe and we're able to shelter and we're doing okay. Are you East Coast, West Coast? Where are you in the
Los Angeles
world? Okay, you're in LA. Nice.
California.
Okay. All right. People were wilding at the beaches a little bit this weekend.
Okay, so let me just make it clear. Those are folks in Orange County, not in Los Angeles County. You cannot go to the beach in Los Angeles County. Literally, the police are blocking off the beach.
Yeah.
So for whatever reasons, Orange County and Riverside and Ventura, they all decided to open up, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah, I know. Governor Newsom had to come back down and put the crack down. I know.
Just like,
I'm not sure what people aren't understanding about this time, but it's a lot. But unfortunately, it's a lot.
I think there's something to say about, I think people who are born and raised in this country, in America, have a lot of feelings about individuality and, quote, freedom. And I think what happens when, if you talk to other people around the world, they're like, oh, we get it. Like, we've lived in these kinds of crises, right? And I think we haven't seen a crisis like this in our lifetime. And so Americans are feeling a lot of ways about having their, quote, freedom being bumped up against. And they're not, because we're not trained to be a collective people. Right. We're trained to be very individualistic. It's hard it's like psychologically hard for people to wrap their minds around, oh, if you don't stay inside, that means everybody else gets sick. Like, people are not getting it. And it's unfortunate because it means that the longer people, and this is elected officials too, the longer they get the note, the longer we are going to be in this crisis.
Right. It's like, give me freedom or give me liberty or give me death. I'm like, you don't want to have that option. You're barreling towards death. And if you ever want your damn freedom back again, you better
Exactly.
I know. I'm like, okay, everybody. Yeah. I mean, it's been hard. We haven't had a sort of a coherent national strategy, and the politics are wild right now, but I really do feel like the collective rallying cry at the beginning of this crisis was potentially like the biggest missed opportunity that we have, because we didn't just, I mean, it's very hard, and we shouldn't put politics aside in this time or any time. It affects us in our daily lives, but there was a moment where we could have said, like, this is real, this is serious. If we all come together, for this time, like, we're going to get through it together. And we just didn't, we never had that. And so it's just been chaotic everywhere. So
we don't have a national government that knows how to bring people together. The literal national government is divisive. So I think what the best we can do is, like, county by county, family by family, town by town, city by city, like, keep it together as much as possible and support each other. I see powerful stuff happening across the country. I see mayors whose governor said we're opening up, and the mayor's being like, no, let's not do that.
We're like, no, we're not doing that. No, that is. I mean, this is, such an honor for me. I just love you so much, and I'm so inspired in all the work that you do constantly. You're an artist and an author and an organizer and an activist, and then you're just yourself as well, and as beautiful as you are, and all of those things. I'm so curious, during this time, and if we think of status quo during this time of maybe that's a stay in place, or maybe that's everyone trying to take this seriously. How are you looking at disrupting the status quo during this time in particular? And sort of what's your process around that? I mean, I think just in general, you disrupt the status quo all the time, just by using your voice and the things that you do. But during this time in particular, how are you looking to do that? And what are your thoughts around that?
You know, I think it's interesting because as someone who's sort of like born and raised inside of the movement and has like, used protest and petitioning as a way to challenge local and state and national government,
Mm-hmm.
um, the following the rules in this time I think is so interesting, right? So it's like stay at home, and I didn't have a problem with that. I'm like infectious virus, I definitely gonna stay at home.
Yeah. I'm like, we're opening back up. I'm going deeper inside my home. I'll see
So that
y'all like in November for the election.
that wasn't a problem, like the following those rules. But I think what I recognized very quickly is like the first groups of people I thought about the moment that the virus was like super clear in this country, because obviously, unfortunately, our government knew about it and didn't really take it seriously. But once we started to take it more seriously, the buzzing was happening in communities. I thought about Black folks, and I thought about incarcerated communities. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, unfortunately, Black folks have a lot of pre-existing health conditions because of the state of the country, because of the lack of access to healthcare, because of living in food deserts.
Yeah.
And then two, incarcerated communities there is no way they can social distance. And so those are the two communities I work with and work on the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first week of the pandemic, I was like totally anxiety ridden. I was like, how do we do this? But then very quickly I was like, okay, let's focus on our county jail system. And so we have been challenging our local elected officials and releasing people safely and getting people the support they need inside. We just issued a lawsuit against the county and the sheriff's department. I'm one of the plaintiffs, and many other amazing groups are plaintiffs. My uncle, who's unfortunately inside the county jails right now, he's 58. He's also a plaintiff. And so, this is my city, this is my county. I've been here, I know it the best. And I always think
Mm-hmm.
like you really challenge the status quo and the places where you live. And that could be an example for the rest of the country. So that's, how I'm challenging the status quo. I think the other way I'm doing that, I'm an artist, as you said earlier. And I just wrote a couple articles, co-wrote them with Autumn Breon Williams, who I think is on here right now watching this, amazing curator. And she and I were like, we're interested in like, how do plagues and pandemics impact the art world? How have they done it
Mm-hmm.
historically? So we launched an article series that dropped today, and then we'll have another one out tomorrow. But I'm so curious about how this moment, and this moment is challenging the status quo, right? There's people who lived in their community for years and never knew their neighbors, and now they
Mm-hmm.
are. There is ways in which we are banding together that people have dreamed about and written books about and wrote movies on, but we've never seen it in real time, in real life. And that to me is the powerful moment of this moment. It's a painful time, it's scary. I wake up scared every day. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
also so hopeful because I see community and human beings coming together in ways that I've only dreamed of.
That's so true. We've been talking a lot, just internally in our company about artists and that time, and we've been trying to reach out to different artists or storytellers and writers. And I'm feeling like this is a moment where, in terms of challenging the status quo and kind of the imbalance of power, I think that we have in the country of who gets to tell the stories and who gets to sort of set the times or set like the times of how we're going to tell these stories in the history. Because it's much more democratized now, you can go on Instagram, you can,
Yeah.
put your stuff on YouTube or SoundCloud or put it up anywhere. As an artist, are you looking almost in a good, I hesitate to say this, but almost in a good way, like a power grab? Because now it's like, you know what, I'm going to make sure that the story from my community, from
Absolutely.
my area gets told. Because if you're watching, the four major news networks, like they can't be everywhere and they're not trying to go everywhere.
Yeah.
And it looks one way. So are you seeing this as almost a way to grab power for a more complete story of what's happening in our country right now?
Yes. Absolutely. And I think what's important for folks to understand is that, for those of us, the generation of millennials, we saw the rise of YouTube and all of these social media platforms. And I think we very quickly understood them as megaphones for our issues.
Mm-hmm.
So our, media outlets were not talking about us, were not checking for us. And so we went to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, now a younger generation using TikTok to actually amplify what we think is important. And honestly, what we think is important is usually what the community around us thinks is important. And
Exactly.
so this is a moment that we can grab people's attention. I'm so impressed with the use of IG Live. Like, I'm so impressed with the use of, TikTok. I'm not going to get on TikTok. I'm too fucking old for TikTok.
I can't too
I'm
freaking
not,
old.
I'm
I
not even
can't. I don't know how
interested.
to.
I think it's cute though, but I'm not
I'm like,
interested.
I think I'm just past it. I can't. I don't know how to do it. I'm like, I've struggled getting someone on IG Live. I can't be doing the. I'm like,
I've watched it and I think it's so cute. And I'm like, yes, that's for that generation. Go for
yeah,
it. But I think
for sure.
for me, like, I'm just excited about how we take this moment and the opportunities to amplify what's happening. And we're using social media to do that. And it's incredible.
Mm-hmm. And I think of that in terms of like changing the access to power too. I think a lot of people just, and I think honestly, people are made to feel, especially younger people or minorities or whatever, maybe made to feel like everything's just so difficult to try to get involved. So I'm just not going to get
Yeah.
involved. Do you
Yeah.
see this as a time, and maybe through social media or maybe just being more involved in your community, as a time to like tip the balance of power and change access to that power? And how can people in communities or young people start to do that? Like, I think some people just don't even know like where to start. Like, where would they go? Where do they start?
Sure. I mean, I think there's a couple things that I'm clear about in this moment. And I always tell this to people when I'm like out speaking and mentoring younger folks and younger activists and younger artists. What's the thing you're most passionate about right now? What are
Mm-hmm.
you feeling most moved by? And I promise you there's probably an organization or a collective that's already working on that, so join them. If in fact in your town, in your city, in your place, there is nothing, you don't have access to any of those folks, start it. Start it yourself. There's a
Mm-hmm.
reason why Alicia Opal and I started Black Lives Matter. It wasn't because there wasn't, Black organizations, but there were not Black organizations led by queer women talking about feminism and challenging the status quo on which what we've seen historically around, very Christian male Black church figure. That
Mm-hmm.
was not going to be our um, that wasn't for us. It was clear it wasn't for us. So we created something that was for us and for a generation of us. And so to me, I'm most excited about, criminal justice reform. I'm most excited about abolition. I'm most excited about art and art making and social practice. And so I create those spaces and I join spaces that are doing that work. In Los Angeles, that's Justice LA, that's Reform LA Jails. I have an art gallery with two other curators called the Crenshaw Dairy Mart and Inglewood, and we actually launched an artist relief fund, and you can find it on CrenshawDairyMart.com. We worked with For Freedoms and Curb and Justice LA to also look at artists. I think it's so important that the artists are not left out of this conversation in this moment around how we reimagine a new world. I think artists have to be at the center of that because the artists are actually the ones that are usually paving the way about how we get rid of the old, how we challenge what happened in the past. And so right now is the opportunity. We have the opportunity as artists and creatives to literally imagine a new world and then build that new world. It's wide open for us. Literally nobody
Yeah.
knows what they're doing right now.
Nobody.
We don't. It's like we are
That's
just
clear.
sort of like we're just trying to figure it out, and that's okay, right? That's
Yeah.
okay. But what we
Mm-hmm.
do understand, what we do have is our imagination, and our imagination can take us very, very far in this moment.
But that's the heart of everything, is the imagination to even start thinking differently. And I keep thinking about like the storytelling aspect and just how the full story really is never told until you have everyone there. So it's like
Yes.
almost even in this time, like without people like you, we wouldn't have, maybe known, okay, incarcerated people right now are at such a higher danger. And people might think, well, wow, they're doing their time or whatever. There's like crass people. But it's also like, okay, well, this is affecting everyone in this time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do we get everyone's story to the table? Because ultimately, like, that helps everyone because now we know more and we know
Yeah.
more about all these communities instead of being at the point now where it's like, oh my gosh, people of color are being disproportionately affected by this. Well, yeah, it's because
Mm-hmm.
of years and years and years of redlining, like you said, food
Exactly.
deserts, and being put in this position. So I always look at the storytelling piece and the artist piece of like, why would we only take the science? Why would we only take the journalism? Why would we only take these parts when like all of it is going to affect how we choose to come out of this? Because I think it's become pretty clear now, like we're not going back to whatever pre-COVID was. Like that shit is dead and gone.
Mm-hmm.
And insofar as we don't have a vaccine or drug therapies, it's, the world is going to look very different. And
Yeah.
like, I'm just trying to imagine what that time looks like. And it is time away from each other, and it is time more distance. And everybody in this time has turned to artists,
Yeah.
whether that's TV shows or music,
Yep.
or, to just put something, because we can't really put the words on it. Like
Yeah.
it's so difficult in this moment, but the artists are just like, we got this. We're doing it.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I know everybody's talking about it and continues to, but D Nice, I think it was week 2. I think we
Yeah.
were all tragically stuck in our house and figuring out when he was like, club quarantine, I got y'all. Like, I'll turn on my IG live and I'm just going to spin. And it really created a different atmosphere. And I think he created a movement around like musicians. All right, like this is the way we can use this. And he just did it on his own. Like, wasn't partnered with any major platform. He just did it on his own. I think these kind of moments, like those are so important, those organic moments that then transform how we understand the tools we have in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like saying that we all have a responsibility to make the world a better place in whatever way you can be most impactful in. So
Yes.
sure, if you're, a news anchor, that's what you're doing right now. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're an artist, like those things are so important to do. And I think sometimes people feel their little part isn't going to affect the rest of it. But obviously, if everyone does, their little part, I guess what advice or what would you tell people, maybe just in terms of organizing or getting out there or just kind of taking that first step to get involved? Because I think so many people are sort of on the brink of that. And especially during this time, I think we've realized that like, everything we thought was important before, like really just it has ceased to be important in our busy lives and our work and all this stuff.
Yes.
We don't have time for this and whatever. And like now we have this beautiful opportunity to reimagine a new world going forward in so many different aspects. What advice would you give people sort of like take that next step right now?
I mean, I think if people felt like they were small and that they couldn't do their part before, I think living in a COVID-19 moment, you realize actually every human being counts. Every single person in this moment counts, whether they're doing the right thing
Yeah.
and making
Yeah.
sure they're taking care of themselves, which means taking care of others, or they're doing things like, flooding a beach and hanging out and bringing a bunch of people and impacting communities. You realize the actual impact of every single human being. So I think, the first thing that someone can do is if you're interested in, mutual aid programs, which there's like hundreds of mutual aid programs going around. Join that, donate to it. It doesn't even have to be dollars. You can donate. There's groups that are giving out Pampers. Local organization here called Dignity Empower Now are giving out Pampers and masks to people. Imagine all those single moms at home that actually can't leave their house with their small children, and they can't get out to do the shopping that some of us can do, or they can't afford to get Amazon Prime, or they kind of get groceries in that way. You can donate to those folks. And so I think the first thing to do is investigate what's happening in your own community. The communities we live in need the help the most.
Right.
And then see where you can be present, see where you can be helpful. I don't know if Recept the Table sends out like, articles and things for people to look at or websites, but I can send a list of websites to folks for people across the country that are doing amazing work that you can join and be involved in. Just because we're sheltering in place doesn't mean that we can't be supportive to our community members. Another thing you can do you live in an apartment building? Do you live in a suburb? Go knock on your neighbor's door. There was a group of children who knocked on neighbor's door to see if there was any elderly folks in their neighborhood, and they're passing out food and supporting folks. There's just so much we can do in this moment to take care of each other. And I think if there's a will, there's a way. And, you know, I loved when people started making face masks. Like,
Yeah.
I have a local tailor that I use that creates all of my West African clothing, Katula. And I texted her and I was like, are you making face masks? And she was like, absolutely, I'll send you 20. Suzo Clothing, which is queer, Black owned here in Los Angeles, also started making face masks. Like, we understand the moment and we stepped into it, and everybody could step into this moment.
Yeah, I love that. Understanding the moment, just stepping into it. Just doing it. Like you said before, nobody knows what to do. Nobody knows what's going on. We don't, frankly, and it's, you know, in part, it's not anybody's fault. The virus is gonna virus until it's not, and until we have the therapies. I love that idea of just doing something. And I think, like, the idea of being really brought back to your community because you can't go anywhere. So now you're like, okay, what restaurants are open? What places of business are open? And how do we support them? How do we actively seek them out to support them? Because this is going to be devastating on local businesses and on small businesses. We've already seen, you know, the small business loans, that's been a complete disaster, as we probably could have guessed. It has bent towards big corporations, but it's going to be really difficult. And I think the most important thing, or one of them that we can do now, is to seek out, like, who's in our community, what are they doing, who's still open.
Yeah. And, you know, I live in LA, so I'm like, have the local context here, but South LA Cafe, the Hilltop Cafe, Coffee and Kitchen, like, those are two black owned, people of color owned businesses that are really struggling because of this moment. You know, I heard that most business sales are down 75%. So how do we support those folks? We make sure in our home to at least buy once or twice a week from a local place, you know, and just making sure we do that. Don't go to your Starbucks. Starbucks is going to be fine after the pandemic. They're going to be fine. Go to your local coffee shop. Exactly. Yeah. Go to your local coffee shop. You know, think about the people who are going to be most impacted, and then reach out to them, support them. You may be that person. You may know the people in your community. Maybe it's getting a group of folks together and thinking about what can we do? What skill set do we have, and how can we bring it? Do I have a car that I can, you know, drive food around to elderly folks? Like, there are so many things if you just take a moment to kind of reimagine what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, the idea that, like, give what you can, and then if you need something, you can ask for it as well. I think sometimes people thinking of volunteering like, I have to volunteer 100 hours a week, and I got to give my whole life. And it's like, no, if you think about the whole community working together and sort of working in synchro with each other, if you need to give, then give. If you need to be given to, then you can have that as well. I think that's really important for us to understand, and to start to trust each other, that we can do that as a community for each other. Yeah,
that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Yes, I mean, one thing I'll just say to that, what you just mentioned, like, because we know that mental health is really impacting people. Like, people's mental health is really, they're having a hard time right now. I know I'm having a hard time emotionally and mentally. I know other people are. So yes, please reach out. It's not just about giving, it's also about receiving in this moment. Receive care, up your therapy sessions if you need to, up your friend Zoom time, talk time, FaceTime time, like whatever you need to do to make sure that you're safe and healthy. Reach out to your team, because they exist. And I think that is, like, a very, very critical thing to say to folks.
I think so too. I mean, I think obviously from a physical standpoint, but from a mental health standpoint as well, I think this time has brought very much to the forefront of our attention. We are only as healthy as a community, as a family, as a country, as our weakest people, as our most sick people, as our most healthy people. It's like, this virus obviously knows no bounds, but we can take that, extrapolate that into so many different parts of life. And so for us to, I think we've just the world's become so big and we're traveling everywhere and it's become so busy, but like ultimately you're one human being in one body.
Yeah.
And it's like you live probably in one place and you see people, and that sort of idea that we can't escape the fact that we're all in this together all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's really important. Yeah, I mean, I keep coming back to this idea that we have an amazing opportunity to change things, like really, truly change things. We have an election coming up, obviously. Pray to God that will help and change. But I think that we are seeing that the real power like lies within the people.
Yeah.
And it's in the communities, and it's in our healthcare workers and our essential workers and all of that. So I'm hoping that people are taking this time to like allow themselves to imagine and to use their imagination to what do you want this world to be? Not, oh, that's never going to happen, or we couldn't do this, or like we can do this. And I hope that that's bringing, people a sense of purpose and allowing them to reimagine the world in a little bit different way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I would keep you on forever, but we're so thankful for you to come on and have this conversation. We'll put all your info up and everything. Everyone should go read everything that you've ever done. We love you so much. You are such a force in the world.
Thank you.
And
this was
so
amazing.
Thankful. Yeah, we'll have
Thanks
to get
for
you
Receset
out.
Table.
Once all this lifts, we will eventually be having live events again, and you are always welcome at any of those events, of course.
Thank you so much. All right. Thanks, all the audience folks who came through. Y'all were lively on the chat.
Yes, they were. I was trying to read it hard. The comments are hard to keep up on.
Thank you, Megan. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.